Hello and welcome to another tutorial. Today I'll be showing you how to make club music in the style of Night Slugs. This project will be made available for free in the description, and as always I have serum presets, samples and other project files available in the description. I'll include the serum project and samples in the download for this project, as well as I know some of you don't have live. If you enjoyed this tutorial, drop a like and please do subscribe. You can also turn on the bell notifications if you never want to miss a video. If you have any suggestions for artists or labels you'd like me to cover in future, please comment below. However, the best way to request tutorials is by joining my Discord server and discussing it with me there. The link is in the description. This video will be a little different from my other how-tos because I'm covering a label as opposed to an individual artist. With this project, I'm primarily taking inspiration from Jam City's seminal record Classical Curves. However, I'm also using elements of Kingdom and Box Productions. I'll link some of the records I referenced throughout the video on the screen and in the description. Let's get into it. Our BPM is 134 and our key is F minor. We're looking at an 8-bar loop for this project. So first we have the kick. We have a sub and a top layer made from 2 different kicks. I'll go through the individual channels first and then the groups, which is how I'll be tackling the project with regards to the other channels and groups. So we'll start with the sub kick. Which you might realize acts as a sub bass as well. There's no other sub within the project. As such, I've tuned the sample to F1. I made sure that simpler is only on one voice, meaning multiple versions of the sample won't trigger at the same time. And this is also true for the top kick. I've used the ADSR to change the sample's envelope, and we have a compressor for consistency. The compressor has a very high release, and this means we have smooth compression on the tail of the sound. If I turn the auto on and off, you should be able to hear what I mean. Just kind of helps to keep things nice and smooth. Then we have this EQ3 with only the low band activated, meaning that only frequencies below 80 Hertz will come through. Then we have the top kick. Again, this has been tuned and the ADSR has been tweaked. We have a saturator, which adds quite a lot of grit. You can hear it dramatically alters the sound. Next, we have an EQ8, which is just removing some sort of punchy, muddy stuff around 200 Hertz. I'll just turn the EQ on and off in the mix and you should be able to hear that it sort of punches through a bit too much or it's a little bit too muddy. Finally, we have an EQ3 with everything below 80 Hertz being filtered out because we have the sub below 80 Hertz. For the kick group, we have a drum bus, which adds drive and it sort of emphasizes the sub as well. We can see we have dampening too, just to dampen down the high frequencies. And then finally, we have an EQ8 just to make sure we don't have any rumbly frequencies coming through. For the MIDI, we have this sort of Jersey Club inspired pattern. I've gone halfway between the busier kick patterns of Jam City's Classical Curves and the more stripped back patterns of Kingdom's That Mystic EP. Next, we have the drum group, and we'll start with the claps. The drum patterns and sample selections are the parts of the track that are most inspired by That Mystic. We have 2 claps. All I've done here is EQ the first clap to remove some harsh frequencies. If we look at the MIDI, we can see that we have the main clap on the 3 and then the less aggressive clap on the offbeat at the ends of every odd numbered bar. Then we have the high percussion. These drum patterns and samples are more akin to Kingdom or Box productions than Jam Cities. We have a tambourine, closed hat, and a cowbell. Since the cowbell is pitched, I've tuned it to ensure that it's in the key of the track. I've used a bit of EQ to remove harsh frequencies from the tambourine, which we don't want. And then at the end of the chain, we have an EQ3 just to remove the low frequencies for the MIDI. We have the tambourine playing an offbeat house-inspired pattern. The closed hats play a grimy rhythm, and then we have the cowbell at the end of every fourth bar for a bit of variation. You'll hear some Roland drum machine samples like the 808 cowbell in various Night Slugs productions, and the R8 triangle sample is another popular one. Now the drum effects. These are sort of Foley inspired, and they're influenced by Jam City's sample selection in classical curves. In the drum rack, we have 3 samples. They've all been tweaked a little bit, pitched around, that kind of thing. We have them in the same choke group so that they don't overlap with one another. If we look at the MIDI, we can see how these sounds are played at the end of every second bar, acting like fills. Let's listen to the group and we can hear them with some more context. All these MIDI patterns have had this MPC style groove applied to them to humanize them. Now for the drum group, we have a drum bus, which helps glue the percussion together with some drive. Brings the level up a little bit as well. Then we have some EQ8, removing low frequencies and a little bit of harshness. Finally, we have an EQ3, just to make sure there are no frequencies that could interfere with the kick or the bass. We have reverb applied via Send A, utilizing this empty club preset with an EQ before. Finally, we have the stabs. These are very classical curves inspired, particularly by the tracks, how we relate to the body and the chords. They're surprisingly similar to super saws and have been made with Serum. We have a saw wave with the unison turned up to 7. We have this stabby envelope and a low pass filter with its cutoff being modulated bidirectionally by LFO1, which is on envelope mode and has a rate of 1/4. If we turn the filter off, we can hear that the sound still works well enough, but the filter does help to add an extra sense of movement. We have the velocity modulating oscillator aids level because I felt that these synth stabs needed to be more dynamic. And we'll see how this is implemented when we have a look at the MIDI. In the effects, we have some distortion for grip, and then we have 2 lots of modulation, flanger, and chorus. I noticed that the stabs in How We Relate to the Body had a metallic quality. So this was something I was trying to achieve by using lots of modulation. If I turn these off, you should be able to hear how these effects create a sense of movement and give the patch more character. On the channel, we have an EQ8, removing low frequencies and a resonance at around 450 hertz, which was popping out a bit. Then we have bass monoing, just to ensure that up to 500 hertz is mono, as club sound systems are mono. For the sends, we have the reverb applied via send A. We've actually got an EQ here, which is removing a resonance that was coming through the reverb a little bit too much via the synth. Then we have the delay, which I've set to 6. A lot of the shorter delay time seemed a bit too trancey, but Jam City does use delay on his stabs in How We Relate to the Body, so this was something I tried to emulate. For the MIDI, we have these chords, which I'll just play in context one more time. These are comprised of the root note, F, the thirds, and the fourth. They play this groovy offbeat pattern. You can see I've altered the velocities, and this creates a further sense of movement, which is very important as the synth is just playing the same chords over and over, and this could get repetitive. And that's it for this video. Any questions or requests, please do leave them in the comments. Feel free to download the project file and enjoy it, and obviously subscribe as well. And I'll see you in the next one.